Hey everyone, welcome to PhoneArena's in-depth video comparison between the Google Nexus S and the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, both two high-end Android-powered smartphones priced at $200 on a contract through T-Mobile service. They all have their unique strengths and there are some similarities with them, but we'll give you a better understanding of which device is probably the right one for you. Now, as you can probably tell, they share the same slate form factor. When you hold them in the hand, they're fairly easy to hold just because they're perfect in size, neither being too large or too small, and they're also very streamlined, measuring at 0.43 inches thick, so you're going to fit in the pockets without being too noticeable. You do notice a little bit more weight with the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, but their design elements are a little bit different, with the Google Nexus S mostly having a minimalistic approach, very clean looking on the surface, versus the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, which employs a bunch of design cues such as the chrome trim bezel, the white glossy plastic, and also the black one on the front. But with the Google Nexus S, the plastic construction does have a tendency to actually attract a little bit more dust, dirt, and debris, and on top of that, more prone to scratching, which is evident in just a couple days of using it. Whereas the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, the white glossy plastic feels a lot more durable and less prone to scratching, and it helps when you have the metallic back cover. But in the end, neither have really truly stunning designs. They're pretty much going to be the same, actually, and it's going to depend on which style you like better. When it comes to screen technology, we actually prefer and adore the Google Nexus S versus the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, just because it has a larger panel at 4 inches versus a 3.8-inch one on the myTouch 4G. At the same time, you have the Super AMOLED display versus the Super LCD display of the myTouch 4G. It just does a better job at just producing colors, just richer looking. You especially notice it in black colors, so you just have a slightly smokier look with the myTouch 4G versus the really deep and rich looking tones of the Google Nexus S. But thanks to WVGA resolution on both devices, you're not going to have any problems even making out the tiniest of text. They're both very responsive to touch, and we're happy with the level of responsiveness they have to offer. But the Google Nexus S offers a little bit better visibility, especially at different viewing angles versus the myTouch 4G, which does become a little bit washed out looking, especially in extreme angles. We can't say enough, but it's just such a nightmare having to use the capacitor buttons on the Google Nexus S just because they're very indistinguishable, even in bright conditions, and we actually prefer the physical buttons of the myTouch 4G. At least they're a little bit more distinguishable, and on top of that, it also offers a trackpad. We're glad to find that both handsets offer front-facing VGA cameras, so you could do self-portraits and also do video chat. The volume rockers of both handsets are found on the left-hand side of both phones, so we actually like the pronounced feel of the Google Nexus S over the recessed one of the myTouch 4G. The dedicated power button's found on the right edge of the Nexus S, since on the top side of the myTouch 4G, it's a little bit more recessed too. It makes it very hard to make out the finger, and we actually like the one with the Google Nexus S better. However, we like the fact that the myTouch 4G offers a dedicated shutter key, which is something that's missing on the Nexus S. It just allows for the convenience of launching the camera application. Furthermore, both devices sport 3.5mm headset jacks, micro USB ports for charging and data connectivity. And in the back, we simply find there are 5-megapixel autofocus cameras. They have a chrome trim around them, LED flashes too, and you have the notches for the speakerphone. Now, as you can tell, as you take off the back covers of both handsets, you find the microSD card slot with the myTouch 4G, which is something that's lacking on the Google Nexus S, but with its back cover, it has that built-in NFC chip. To better show you the difference in screen technologies, we're just going to show you some samples with both handsets. The top are ones from the myTouch 4G, and the ones are from the bottom are for the Google Nexus S. And as you mentioned earlier, as you could tell here, the blacks are deeper tones with the Google Nexus S, while it's a little bit more smokier in tone with the myTouch 4G. Overall, color output still looks a little bit better on the Google Nexus S. Colors are just deep in tones, very lush and vibrant. So it definitely stands out over the Super LCD display of the myTouch 4G. Both devices are in fact packing 1 GHz processors, but the T-Mobile myTouch 4G utilizes a Snapdragon, whereas the Google Nexus S packs a Cortex A8 Hummingbird processor. Still, they're mighty quick in executing a bunch of different stuff, as you can tell just by navigating across the various home screens of both devices. Very smooth and fluid. There's barely any evidence of lag. Scrolling, kinetic scrolling, in fact, is very fluid as well. and launching applications is very quickly, so you're not going to have too much problem in terms of speed. Needless to say, the biggest draw with the Google Nexus S is its gingerbread experience. Android 2.3, which is a stock experience, doesn't have any customized interfaces running on top of it and just gives you all the core essentials you find with Android. Whereas the T-Mobile myTouch 4G is running Android 2.2 Froyo and has the Sense UI running on top of it. So there's a bunch of different widgets that you could place onto the home screens that are specific with HTC's devices. But granted, though, both devices still deliver the same amount of personalization, so you can add different shortcuts, widgets, folders, and wallpapers, but there's just a difference look with them both. You can tell even with the app panel, there's a 3D-like effect with the Google Nexus S, while it's just a stationary 2D-looking one with the myTouch 4G. With the social networking experience, it's going to be the same with both handsets, since they're both Android devices, obviously. With the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, it sports the Friend Stream widget, which essentially aggregates a bunch of different content directly on the home screen, so you don't have to launch a separate application. And on top of that, you can even post your own status message to either Facebook or Twitter. But again, with the Google Nexus S, even though it's a stock experience, you can download dedicated apps like Twitter or even Facebook, and you still can use the widgets, so you can do some functionality such as typing up a tweet or a Facebook message. Email setup on both phones is a painless experience just because the only thing you're required to do is just put in your username and password, but every now and then it might ask for other specific pieces of information. They display emails in HTML view, so you'll see all pictures just like you see them on desktop, and the Gmail experience are very similar, of course, just because they're both Android-powered devices. Honestly, after using their keyboards, you're probably going to get used to either one. On the Google Nexus S, it sports the latest layout with the Android keyboard. The great thing about it is that it now implements numbers in the top row, so you just perform a long press and it'll essentially put in a number as opposed to pressing the dedicated numbers key at the bottom left. They're both very responsive. With the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, it even sports the swipe keyboard, so if you're used to this type of way of inputting text, it does become quite handy. You'll definitely notice that it's a little bit more speedy in some ways. When you tell them to landscape, though, you get pretty much a good-sized keyboard with both, so the experience should be a really enjoyable one. Yet another great feature that both handsets offer is mobile hotspot functionality, so you'll be able to share your data connection with other devices via Wi-Fi, but the Google Nexus S also has the option right out of the box to do USB tethering. When it comes to web browsing, both handsets deliver a high level of performance just because they offer support for Flash 10.1, so you do get like that desktop-like feel. On top of that, they render pages just like you see on a computer. They also have a nice, smooth, kinetic scrolling, and you have multi-touch gesture support, so you can zoom in, zoom out at different lengths. But the biggest advantage with the myTouch 4G is the fact that it has HSPA Plus connectivity, so pages do load up a lot faster than what's offered on the Nexus S. Now, even though the Google Nexus S managed to emit stronger tones with its speaker over the myTouch 4G, which kind of tends to sound kind of crackly and screechy, the music player interface has to go to the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, just because when you play a song, not only will they both display the album covers, track information, even the on-screen controls, but you have this somewhat 3D-like interface, this carousel where you can switch between songs. A very pretty looking one too, and definitely has a better overall presentation. Primarily due to its larger display and better looking colors, the Super AMOLED display of the Google Nexus S is more conducive to the needs of movie watching than what's offered on the myTouch 4G. Now, the video we have here is encoded in MPEG-4, 1280 by 720 resolution. As you can tell from both handsets, they're playing quite smoothly, barely any evidence of any slowdown or jittery movements with it. Overall, it should be great on both handsets, but you gotta hand it to the Nexus S just because of its Super AMOLED display. If you're more into photography, you'll probably want to look at the T-Mobile myTouch 4G over the Google Nexus S. Now, at the top we have samples from the myTouch 4G. At the bottom we have ones from the Google Nexus S. Now, if you take a close look, the colors might look a little bit washed out looking with the myTouch 4G. Now, that's just because of we're viewing the photos directly on the handset on the Super LCD display, while it looks a little bit more vibrant on the the Google Nexus S and the Super AMOLED display, but when we took the photos and checked them out both on the computer, we just find that the ones offered by the T-Mobile myTouch 4G just looks a little bit better. It has actually more natural looking tones than what was offered on the Google Nexus S. On top of that, detail was a little bit more fine looking with the myTouch 4G. So in any event, even in low lighting conditions, the myTouch 4G definitely excels over the Google Nexus S, and its flash does a better job, especially for further shots taken from 7 feet away. And just because the myTouch 4G offers 720p video recording versus the DVD-like quality 720 by 40 resolution capture on the Google Nexus S, we have to give video recording a slight advantage to the myTouch 4G. But to tell you the truth, the quality is going to be kind of the same, except for the fact that there's higher resolution with the myTouch 4G. The myTouch 4G on the top shoots at a capture rate of 28 frames per second in good lighting conditions, where it shoots 29 frames per second with the Google Nexus S. But the only thing we had trouble with the Google Nexus S is its constant change in exposure, which isn't a problem with the with T-Mobile myTouch 4G. It might look a little more choppy looking with the myTouch 4G, but overall 720p, it's still a little bit better than the DVD-like quality of the Google Nexus S. If making voice phone calls is something that's still placed highly on your list, then you want to take a look at the Google Nexus S, just because the overall quality and experience is a lot better than what's offered on the T-Mobile myTouch 4G. First of all, you have a very weak earpiece on the myTouch 4G, and voices have a static sound to it. And when you use the speakerphones of both handsets, there's a screechy tone emitted by the myTouch 4G, while it's a lot better off with the Google Nexus S. Battery life has to go to the Google Nexus S, just because in our testing and using both handsets, we just find it to offer a little bit more juice compared to the myTouch 4G. Granted that both will offer at least a 1 day's use on normal usage, we managed to get that a little bit more, a day and a half with the Google Nexus S. So if you're a T-Mobile customer, you're going to be faced with a difficult decision as to which device you're probably going to side with. With the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, we just feel that offers a little bit more bang for the buck, primarily because it has HSPA Plus connectivity. Granted that it might not be the latest build of the platform, it still managed to function at its core, just the same that you will see on the Android 2.3 Gingerbread-powered Google Nexus S. On top of that, build quality is a lot better with the T-Mobile myTouch 4G. You get also better camera quality and video quality with it as well. And overall, it's a more well-rounded device than what's offered in the Google Nexus S. And when it's priced at $200 on contract, they both offer pretty much the same functionality. It's just that HSPA Plus connectivity that really caps off its overall appeal. So if you'd like to learn more about the Google Nexus S or the T-Mobile myTouch 4G, you can head on to our website at PhoneArena.com.